Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Jason Williams, and I'm with my tag team partner, Blake Castetter, and we are the Sunday Fun Day guys. Blake, week 4? Is it week 4?
No, we're done with week 4.
We're done with week 4. Man, I can't even keep track. So I'm in a hotel room in near Chicago. So good times. I'm doing a remote episode of the Sunday Fun Day guys fantasy football podcast. So yeah, let's get right into it. Another interesting week to say the least, buddy.
Yeah, it wasn't nothing crazy like previous weeks with major upsets. A lot of the money lines hit. But yeah, it was a good week 4 for some. Me not being one, got knocked out of my guillotine league. That was painful, but you live and you learn.
I am still in it, hanging on by a thread, but I can't. I can't and won't comment on how I'm doing in my other leagues because it's actually not very good. But we digress. So let's get right into it. Let's kind of recap some of our picks from last week, which we haven't done in the past. But I think, especially last week, I think we hit some home runs last week, buddy. What do you think?
We did, man. Your
Yeah.
CJ Stroud pick of your start of the week at QB7 in the end. My pick of Justin Fields, 303. I did say that. You kind of gave me one of the
You're right.
looks.
You're right. You're right.
He ended up having 350 and 3 total
Right.
and ended up with QB1 on the week.
Oh, yeah.
Those were
Good
our
call.
big home runs on the start side of things. On the sit side of things is where we really knocked it out of the park.
Grand slams.
Yeah, man. And you can't project an injury, but in the end, you said sit Anthony Richardson, and he was QB 31. I said sit Aaron Rodgers, QB 20. You said sit ETN, running back 39. I said sit Dobbins, running back 37. You said sit Ayuk. I don't know how I felt about that one. Ended up being wide receiver 56. And then I said sit Garrett Wilson. He was the wide receiver 3 on his team, wide receiver 75 overall. Then we both put all of our chips in on Baltimore's tight ends, neither of which were top 24 tight ends.
Those are home runs right there. No question.
Yeah.
Hey, a squirrel finds a nut every once in a while, right? Wouldn't you say
Especially a
that?
blind one.
Yeah, but we do our research, fanatics. I mean, again, we're not coming to you and just throwing things out there. We take some time and we do the research. So, but let's be honest, we're boasting and bragging this week. Now, who knows what the next week or the following weeks will hold? But you know, hey, at this point for last week, we hit it out of the park. So
We'll take that dub.
yeah, for sure, we'll take it. Storylines from week 4, Blake.
Yeah, man. So some of the things we've learned. Kenneth Walker is without question the man in Seattle in that backfield. He showed up Monday Night Football. Did you see that? I mean, his touchdown, he had some crazy plays considering he only had 12 carries.
Oh yeah, he showed up and showed out.
He
I
did.
mean, he was amazing last week on Monday night. Yes.
The New England backfield starting to get a little bit hairy. You got Stevenson, 4 fumbles in 4 games. And Mayo's come out and said it wouldn't be out of the question to think that we start Antonio Gibson.
Wow.
Jaden Daniels, kid has arrived. QB1 overall through 4 weeks, 85% completion percentage or greater the past 2 games. I think he's only had 6 incompletions against the Bengals and the Cardinals combined.
Amazing. And to speak to Jaden Daniels, like, and again, I know these like scouts and GMs, and they get paid a lot of money, but if you watch college football, it was very, very much evident that Jaden Daniels was better than Caleb Williams. Now, I'm not sure changing what Caleb Williams can be, but I saw what Jalen Daniels did in an LSU uniform. And what did I say? I said it reminded me a little bit of Joe Burrow. And a lot of people were like, what? I'm like, listen, I'm telling you, this kid reminds me of Joe, just more athletic. And we're starting to see that athleticism and that quarterback and that arm and the whole package. He's got it all.
Mm-hmm.
He's got it all.
I might have been low on my projection of QB9 overall for the whole season.
Well, I think
Right now,
everybody.
QB1.
I think everybody was low if he's a QB1. Let's be honest here.
Let's see. Sam Darnold, 4 weeks in a row. I mean, is he legit? That might be a super waiver wire pickup for whoever got him in every single league. And then Justin Fields showing up with the QB1 performance. You trust Justin Fields, Jason?
Are you asking me right
I
now?
am.
I do not. I'm not ready. I trust Sam Darnold more than I trust Justin Fields.
Okay.
Because of the people around Sam Darnold, the offensive coaching around Sam Darnold. And I just think at this point, it's hard to trust Justin Fields off a game where you're playing one of the worst defenses in the league. You're down 17-0. So at that point, you have limited options. Typically, Pittsburgh's going to run the ball and play defense. When you're down 17-0 in the second half, you can't do that. So, but from that small sample size, hey, Justin Fields did Justin Fields things. He was impressive. I'll give him that. Yeah.
Yep. I would agree. You had in the weapons, you talked about the people surrounding him, coaches and whatnot, but he's also got Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson just got back to open practice, right? So
yeah,
he's coming back. So he's going to have some weapons.
TJ Hawkinson, we need you. We are struggling at tight end, buddy. We need you. Please come back.
Oh man. But then again, as we've seen the entire season, another week full of injuries. You got Christian Watson with the high ankle sprain. You got Anthony Richardson with the hip pointer. You got Rashee Rice, still to be determined. They feared the worst, but now they're saying that maybe it's not a season ending. Jonathan Taylor with a mild high ankle sprain. I'm not sure what a mild one is, but then you got Malik Neighbors. He had a concussion. He's in the protocol. He did miss practice today, Wednesday the 2nd. So
it'll be iffy.
Mm-hmm.
Yep,
definitely. Could be hard to get through protocol at this point.
Yeah, I mean, again, this is the NFL, and you better have some depth on your team. And speaking to a couple injuries, the Christian Watson injury, and this speaks to the point where we'll talk about Green Bay's receivers. They have depth at receiver, so are they really going to miss Christian Watson? Probably not as much as Kansas City will miss Rashee Rice, no question. Yep,
for sure. Green Bay is the team that can lose a starting wide receiver and not skip a beat.
Exactly. There not too many teams can say that.
Mm-mm. All right, man. So week 5 up and coming. We're starting the bye weeks. You want to give the Fanatics a little insight into what they've got coming up bye week wise, what players might be in a roster that they need to consider replacing or putting on their bench and filling a different spot with?
Sure. So we got 4 teams on bye this week, Fanatics. We got the Philadelphia Eagles and the LA Chargers, Detroit Lions, and Tennessee Titans. So I'll go through each team and kind of the players that obviously have been drafted or on said teams that you might want to account for this week in your starting lineup. So the players for the Eagles, obviously Saquon Barkley, A.J. Brown, Dallas Goedert, Devontae Smith, and Jalen Hurts. So obviously you're going to want to account for those guys being out this week on their bye. Chargers, J.K. Dobbins, Quentin Johnson. Could you put Herbert in there? Maybe, and maybe their defense, but those are the players and positions for the Chargers. The Lions, they have a plethora of players. You got Goff, Gibbs, Montgomery, Laporta, St. Brown, and Williams. So if you have any of those guys, obviously they're coming off a big win, scoring a lot of points. You're probably disappointed, but you're going to have to fill in those gaps, and that's when depth comes in, Fanatics. That's why you make those picks in the 9th, 10th, 11th round because of bye weeks. And lastly, the Tennessee Titans. Not too many people, but you have Tony Pollard, Tajay Spears, Calvin Ridley, and DeAndre Hopkins. So those are the players for each of the 4 teams that you will want to account for in terms of not being in your lineup for this upcoming week.
Yeah, and some of those, there are players on the waiver wire that could be still out there. This is being recorded on Wednesday. That could help you fill those spots. At the quarterback position, you got Justin Fields. He was only 31% rosters going into waivers this week. Geno Smith at 44%. And then if Sam Darnold is still on your waiver wire, pick him up, please.
Seriously. What are you waiting for?
Right. How much more evidence do you need to see?
Exactly.
At the running back spot, Kareem Hunt only rostered in 35% of leagues, which is kind of crazy given you don't know how that Kansas City backfield was going to shake out. So I guess, looking at both sides of it, that could be a reason why he's not rostered. Nobody wants to take that risk. But at the same time, man, which guy's going to hit the home run and be the lead back? It could be Kareem Hunt, and he looked well this week.
He did. I mean, he looked really good in the short stints or the short sample size that we have. He looks like he's got fresh legs, and he's definitely going to help Kansas City as they wait for Pacheco to come back.
Mm-hmm. You got Justice Hill, who, while Derrick Henry is rocking and rolling, he is still very involved in the offense. He's not going to be your RB1, your RB2, most likely. But when you got a bye week, or if you need a flex spot filled in a half PPR league or a PPR league, Justice Hill could be that guy.
Right. He seems to make the most out of his opportunities, and he is the quintessential flex player, no question about it.
Without a doubt, he's the old Darren Sproles,
no doubt.
And then Trey Sermon, with Jonathan Taylor getting banged up this week, he's only 1% owned going into waiver period this week. I'm sorry. He might get a starting role this week, next week, a couple weeks. He's just a fill-in. But he's going up against the Jags defense. While their run defense isn't bad, he's still a starting running back.
Exactly. Anytime you can get your hands on a starting running back, whether it's 1 week, 3 weeks, 5 weeks, just pick him up. And worst he could, you don't know what he can do. He's got a great offensive line, and obviously he knows the system. The quarterback situation has changed, so I think that'll help him as well. And I'm sure we'll get more into that. But definitely one you want to keep your eye on is Trey Sermon.
Yeah, and then for those wide receivers, you've got Wan'Dale Robinson at 26% owned. You got Mike Williams at 21% owned. Then you got the Green Bay wide receivers, which, Romeo Doubs at 40% and Dontavian Wicks at 14%. Wicks is the home run threat, high ceiling kind of guy. Romeo is the target hog, but a much lower ceiling. But both of those guys should be rostered in all leagues at this point.
Agreed. I drafted Doubs in a couple of my leagues later in the round. So, again, not knowing how Green Bay's wide receiver situation would shake out and if somebody would get hurt. But now it's a perfect opportunity to either get Wicks or Doubs if they're still out there in your respective leagues.
Yeah, and we had said a couple weeks ago when Love went down, give it a week, let the offense not be good, and then start looking to acquire these players before Jordan Love comes back.
Exactly, because the stock would have been low at that point.
Correct.
Yep.
So that's the reason that Wicks and Doubs might be on the waiver wire. They might be there just because the offense wasn't clicking like it was with Love.
Yeah. I would be shocked if they were, but if they are, definitely get one of those two guys. I'm more partial to Doubs, but obviously Wicks can be a boom or bust. And if you need a bye week filler, he's a perfect guy to have in that place at that flex position.
Agreed.
Yep.
All right, man. So I put together a couple items for us here. It's a rest of the season. Who do we like better for the rest of the season? Who would you rather have? Yeah. Okay. So let's talk through these. Let's start off first. Jaden Daniels or Patrick Mahomes, Jason? Fantasy Pros has Jaden Daniels rest of season ranked 4th and Patty Mahomes 7.
Right.
Where do you want Patrick Mahomes rest of season or Jaden Daniels?
Oh, there's no question. I'm taking a new shiny toy. Patrick Mahomes is old news. Can you believe that? And he's has a chance to do a three-peat, and I'm picking Jaden Daniels. But if we're talking fantasy, then way more upside with Jaden Daniels than Patrick Mahomes at this point.
Yep. I'm right there with you. Not only that, but his rest of season schedule is easier as well.
Yeah, no question.
Saquon or King Henry? Now, Saquon's at 1, King Henry's at 4, rest of season.
This was tough. But I think what has happened is Baltimore realizes after their 0-2 start that they had talked about, we're not going to give Derrick Henry the ball that much, because we're saving him for the postseason. Well, if you don't win in the regular season, you ain't getting to the postseason. So this is a really tough one because I've always been a fan of Saquon going back to his Penn State days, but I got to go with Derrick Henry. I mean, he is just a monster. There's a lot of guys playing linebacker that I would love to tackle. He ain't one of them. I don't want any parts of that guy. No way. You saw the guys with the Bills bounce off of him like nothing. And while I love Saquon and how he can make great runs and can catch out of the backfield, Derrick Henry, in my opinion, is just a bigger version of Saquon Barkley. Way bigger.
He is, and an older version of Saquon Barkley. So I will take Saquon.
Okay.
He's got a much easier strength of schedule moving forward.
Right.
I like the consistency.
Yep.
Derrick Henry so far, 2 games solid, 2 games not so solid.
Sure.
Saquon's been over 100 all 4 so far. The offense is running through Saquon. He's got a solid offensive line as well. I don't think either are bad picks. Obviously at 1 and 4 rest of season. These are picks though that could make or break.
Yeah.
Stevenson or Najee Harris. Stevenson, Fantasy Pros has a 23. Najee, currently 25.
Oh man. So I got a couple reasons I'm going to take Najee Harris. And you guys know, I'm not a big fan of the Steelers offense, but the one thing they like to do is run the ball. That has never changed in the 40 or 50 years the Steelers have been successful. They like to run the ball and they like to play defense. The Patriots, I can't say that they're committed to the run. I know they try to commit to the run, but Pittsburgh has always been like, okay, we're running the ball and we're going to play good defense. I think the Patriots are like that. But if you're comparing defenses, I'm taking Pittsburgh's all the time. And for that reason, close games, goal line carries, tough running back, I'm taking Najee Harris.
As much as I dislike Najee, Jalen Warren is banged up. They are going to run the ball. Stevenson has had a fumbling issue, and they are talking about Gibson getting the start. So I would give the check mark to Najee as well.
100%. I think
Zach Moss or Chase Brown,
one.
27 and 33. This hits home. This is close.
No, I don't think it's close. I really don't.
Okay.
Even though Zach Moss had a great game Sunday, man, when you watch any running back who's got a little bit more juice than the other running back, you wonder why that running back isn't playing more. And Chase Brown, every time he gets the ball, it's like he hits the hole so much harder than Zach Moss. Now, can he take the pounding Moss can? I'm not sure. But listen, I've started Chase Brown as a flex for the past 2 weeks, and I've had pretty good results. So if I'm picking between one of the two, I'm taking Chase Brown over Zach Moss.
And by close, I meant close to home.
Oh.
Not close in ranks.
I got you.
But I'm with you. I want the electric guy.
Yep.
I'd rather have a huge week and then an okay week versus consistent okay plus a couple point weeks.
Agreed.
On to wide receivers. Garrett Wilson or Tyreek Hill? Garrett Wilson, Fantasy Pros ranked 9. Ooh. Tyreek at 14.
This one hurts my heart because I drafted Tyreek in 2 of my leagues, and yikes! I know, right? That's why I hate having those high picks, man. It drives me nuts because you have no choice in the matter at some point. But is there another one besides these 2 I could take?
No.
All right.
Look at their current situations. Come on, rest of season.
I'm going to go with Garrett Wilson just because of the quarterback situation. I think now Aaron Rodgers is 40, so he's got a lot of tread on the tires. But am I trusting Aaron Rodgers or any quarterback on Miami's roster? Come on, Aaron Rodgers is a Hall of Famer. Now, will teams, move their coverage to Garrett Wilson? They will, but hopefully, again, the offensive coordinator figure out ways to get Wilson the ball in different areas. So I'm going with Garrett Wilson. I don't even think this was close.
I'm with you. And until Tua is back full time and all the time,
yep,
Tyreek Hill they can't get him the ball.
Yeah.
Deontay Johnson at 18 or Jaden Reed at 19. I mean, this one's close in the rankings. This is the individual team dynamic is changing for both of them with Andy Dalton and now Jordan Love coming back.
Right.
Christian Watson out. Adam Thielen out. Like this is where are you at?
It's tighter than it was 2 weeks ago, but I'm still rolling with Jaden Reed, who I actually have a little bit of a segment coming up here soon about Jaden Reed. But I'm still taking Jaden Reed over Deontay Johnson just because of the explosiveness of Green Bay's offense and their quarterback situation.
I like that as well. I also like the fact that they get him the rock on the ground. He runs the ball 1 to 2 times a game usually.
Right.
They find ways to get him involved.
And here's a little tidbit: if he's got some rushing stats and some type of betting, I would take the over.
I do like those too. I remember going back to last season taking those overs.
Oh yeah, we talked about that last year.
All right. Well, hopefully that helps somebody somewhere trying to make a decision, whether it be a trade or even some start sit options.
Yeah, that was good. I like that. I really like the idea of comparing, two different guys at the same position and where they are now, where they could be. I mean, there's a lot of factors that go into this. I mean, a month ago, would you have made the Garrett Wilson pick over Tyreek Hill? No way.
No chance.
Not at all. No chance. But things are different now. In a month, if we revisit this, it could change drastically again. You never know. So, good segment, buddy. Nice job. Now, starting sits for week 4.
Let's do it.
Blake, we're going to start with your QB start right away. I'm seeing it now. I'm like, oh boy, you've resurrected an old man. So I can appreciate this because I'm an old man, relatively speaking to you. So I'm happy you went with the old veteran. Go ahead,
Joe Flacco.
Woo.
If Anthony Richardson is out, give me Joe Flacco. Not only start him in your fantasy leagues, put him in your DFS. That
Definitely
daily is going to be cheap.
Real cheap.
And he just stepped in and had a solid game against a solid Steelers defense. Put up 19 points.
Crazy.
This week, he's facing the league's worst pass defense. Worst ranked against opposing QBs. 28th ranked against opposing wide receivers. The Jacksonville Jaguars. Can Flacco step in and make magic happen like he did in 23 with Cleveland? I don't know. But after that performance last week and resurrecting Michael Pittman, start him.
I can't believe we're saying Joe Flacco's name. I can't. Like, wait a minute. Come on, man. Wait a minute. Is this like 10 years ago or is it 2024? I'm like, what is going on? But in this crazy year of fantasy, anything is possible at this point. So yes, I kind of agree with Blake. Why not start? At this point, why not? If you could give me a reason why you wouldn't start him, then let's talk about it. But at this point, with the stats Blake gave you, heck, why not?
If you got a solid starting QB, obviously we're not talking about starting Flacco over Jaden Daniels, right?
Right.
But don't look past Flacco this week.
Yeah. Well, let's say you had Anthony Richardson and you had, I'm just going to throw out the name, Jared Goff. So, again, you're kind of in between a rock and a hard place.
Uh-huh.
So, yeah, at that point, Joe Flacco was appealing. No question.
Go pick up Flacco. You have the guaranteed starter for Indy.
Yeah. Yep.
And he should perform.
He should. We'll find out.
And the wildest part is, before he rejoined with Cleveland last year, he was sitting on a couch.
Yep.
And now he's back to starting again for an NFL team. That's wild.
That is wild. Well, I'm going to go with a former West Virginia alum who showed up and showed out on Monday Night Football. I'm going with Geno Smith, coming off a career game against the Detroit Lions. He's going against a Giants defense that allows 72.6 completion percentage to quarterbacks, highest in the league. I know it's a short week. I know they're coming off a disappointing loss, but I think the Seahawks rebound, and I think Geno Smith is a great start this week. Again, if you got Jalen Hurts, Jared Goff, Justin Herbert, anybody like that, perfect opportunity to continue, getting points from the quarterback position. So I think Geno's a great start this week against the Giants D that, quite honestly, isn't that great.
I can't believe we're talking about him still being potentially on waiver wires.
That is insane.
44% available or owned, 56% available.
I don't know what to say. I got him on a couple of my teams, and I've started him. I started him last week because I needed I'm trying to think who was out for me. It was Tua. Like, he was my backup to Tua. So I've started the last couple of weeks. So it's paid off. And on the quarterback side. Now I have deficiencies in other areas, but again, starting Geno Smith is not a bad deal this week.
Who you sitting this week, though?
Oh, yeah, my nemesis, Kyler Murray. Now, you guys know from our first episode, a lot of people are like Kyler Murray, Kyler Murray, Kyler Murray, Kyler Murray, Kyler Murray. And he had that one game where I think he had a perfect QB rating, right?
Mm-hmm,
Correct?
yeah.
Well, that was only one game, folks. And don't get all carried away with one game. So the numbers at best after the 3 touchdown game, he doesn't even have 200 yards passing a game after that game. If you take away that game, he doesn't have 200 yards passing. I'm not sold on Kyler Murray. Again, he was low on my preseason rankings. He is going against a familiar foe in the 49ers. I just don't think it's a good matchup. So I would definitely sit Kyler Murray this week against the 49ers. Even though it's a division matchup, I just don't like – I don't like where he's trending. He's trending down instead of up.
San Francisco has made it tough on quarterbacks, and you're right. Kyler Murray has not done well aside from one game. So your ranking from the preseason might be fairly spot on. I know I was higher on him than you were. I thought his ground game.
You weren't the only one. I was getting a lot of flack for that deal too. I'm like, okay, folks, we'll see. Like, you guys just let the season play out, right? That's what we said.
I'm sitting Patrick Mahomes. You mentioned him earlier.
Woo.
I'm sitting him versus New Orleans. This guy, I don't know if you've realized this, he hasn't topped 25 fantasy points in a game since week 7 of 2023.
Wow.
Not one time. Speaking of one time, he's only topped 20 points one time in the past 9 games. And he just lost Rashee Rice. Now he's up against an underrated defense in the New Orleans Saints, who hasn't allowed a quarterback to score more than 15.2 fantasy points this entire season, including Jalen Hurts.
Sitting Patrick, huh?
I'm not starting him.
That's bold. But and back to your point about the Saints defense, that was one of my defenses that I was like, they're pretty good. And they don't give up a lot of points. Now they'll give up some big plays, but they're pretty consistent. So I can see why you wouldn't start Mahomes when there's other quarterbacks out there that are putting up way more points to him at this point in the season.
Including Sam Darnold.
Yes. Yeah, that you should whisper that because that doesn't even sound right. Like, Sam Darnold is putting up better numbers than Patrick Mahomes. Again, are we in a twilight zone? Is this some type of cruel April Fool's trick in October? I don't know, but it has been a wild and crazy season stat-wise for guys who you thought would really, really hit the stats really hard, who have come back down to earth, who have plummeted off the cliff. I mean, we go on and on and on, but the bottom line is, hey, Blake's making a call. He's got the cojones to sit Patrick Mahomes. So there you have it.
Let's move on to running backs.
Yes.
Starting Jordan Mason, Jason. Help me understand why he's your start of the week.
Because he's going against the Cardinals. People's offenses get right against the Cardinals. The Cardinals are ranked 28th against the run, Blake, and gave up over 200 yards last week to Jayden Daniels and his crew. I look for a healthy dose of Jordan Mason this week if the Niners are smart. No question.
Seems like a no-brainer to me.
No-brainer. Must start. I can see him being top 3 running back this week, if you ask me, in terms of points this week against that terrible defense against the run. I mean, 200 yards.
That's a lot of yards on the ground.
That's hard to do. That's hard to give up that many yards. You couldn't even put a bunch of high schoolers out there, and they'd have trouble giving up 200 yards. But the Cardinals seem to do it, and do it frequently if they're 28th against the run.
You mentioned the Commanders. I'm starting Jerome Ford, who is facing the Commanders. 31st ranked overall defense, allowed the 11th most points to running backs on the season. Every single week so far this season, they've allowed a single running back to score at least 16 points. I've got to imagine that, Jerome Ford has Nick Chubb right on his tail. They've, opened up the practice window for him. but he's also pulled away from Deonta Foreman, who was starting to steal carries for a little bit, but last week he barely touched the ball at all. So I'd be hard-pressed to think that Jerome Ford doesn't put up at least 16 points this week against Commanders defense.
See, I like where you're going with this, but man, that running back situation in Cleveland is iffy.
Mm-hmm.
Like 1 week it's Foreman. I mean, I don't know if I even touched that, to be honest with you. I just don't like it. It's becoming more of a Bill Belichickian Patriots running back by committee thing. And then Chubb, now you got Chubb back on the scene. So go ahead.
Now, I mean, I was feeling that way too. Yeah. But the past 2 weeks, Foreman's been very not involved. And the first week, so 3 out of 4 weeks, Foreman has basically been non-existent in the offense. There was the 1 week where they kept feeding him the rock, and I'm not sure why that was, but they definitely gave him a lot of touches.
Yep. So we'll see how that plays out. I think, again, you got to see how these things shake out with running back situations in terms of who's getting carries this week, who's getting it kind of reminds me a little bit of Tennessee's running back situation. Like you can't put your finger on it. It changes week to week.
Well, same with Cincinnati, which is why I'm sitting Zach Moss this week.
Look at you, right?
Like that?
Yeah, I do.
He's facing a Baltimore run defense that's 3rd in the league. I mean, let's just start off. Only allowed 1 running back to score more than 9 points the entire season. So that right out of the gate's a bad start.
Yep.
Last week, we saw Chase Brown do what he does best. He was explosive. He was electric, et cetera, et cetera. Is he a threat to Moss's starting role? Maybe. The touches last week were almost even. Chase had 17, Moss had 19. Over the season, Brown's yards per carry, 6.3 to Moss's 3.9. So going up against the Ravens, solid run defense. Moss might be losing touches at a minimum to Chase. And then we also have got a potentially negative, maybe very negative game script where they might be having to pass the ball a whole lot as opposed to running the ball to keep up with Baltimore. So I just don't trust Moss this week. I don't even know if I trust him in a flex position.
I would agree. I mean, look at the numbers. The yards per carry, 6.3 to 3.9. I mean, if you're giving Chase Brown the ball, you get 6 yards. That puts you in 2nd and 4. What team wouldn't take that every day, all day? So, again, even last year, as much as I love Joe Mixon, you can see Chase Brown brought some juice to the offense. So I just don't understand why he's not playing more. Maybe it's because of Zach Moss could take the pounding or whatever. But I think the Bengals are a better team when Chase Brown gets a certain amount of carries a game over Zach Moss, no question. So I can see why you would sit Zach Moss against the Ravens defense.
Yeah, Brown chipped or broke into Mixon's carries and touches last year, big time.
Yeah. Yep. So for me, my sit of the week, I think this is easy. Devon Achane, no Tua, no shot. They play the Patriots this week, and they'll make it a point to stop Achane this week. And I would bench pretty much any running back from Miami. I don't care who it is, Wilson, Wright, whoever. I just with their quarterback situation, it's not good. Teams know that, and they're taking advantage of it. So I think this is an easy call. Sit Devon Achane. I got him in a couple of my leagues, and I'm just like, what do I do with them? I would actually start Chase Brown over Achane this week if I had an opportunity.
I mean, they're going to load the box.
Correct.
They're going to make Huntley beat him.
Correct. Why wouldn't you?
After what we saw with Tennessee, there's no reason to be worried about Huntley through the air.
Yeah, that was an ugly game. Ugly. So, yeah, Devon Achane, sit him.
All right. So earlier in the day, you mentioned that you had a Jayden Reed segment. Looks like you got him as your starting receiver. Let's hear this segment. What's your case for starting Jayden Reed, my friend?
It's an easy case. Well, Christian Watson is hurt. Jordan Love is back. And when Jordan Love played, managed to average 130 yards and a touchdown with his buddy Jordan Love in the back end of the lineup. Again, the stats bear it out. I don't need to talk any more about it. I'm starting Jayden Reed if I have him in any league, DFS, whatever. Now that Jordan Love's back for a second week, you could tell last week he was rusty, but made up for it in the second half and made that game closer than it should have been. And now I think he's at full strength. I think all those receivers in Green Bay get a little bit of a boost, especially Jayden Reed. So I'm starting Jayden Reed at wide receiver this week.
All
regardless
formats.
of, yep, all formats.
One of the other things that you had mentioned previously in one of our episodes was that Michael Pittman needed consistency.
Ooh, you ain't kidding.
And you weren't touching anybody in Indy until we had consistency. Well, I'm starting Michael Pittman this week because I think that Joe Flacco, much like Amari Cooper last year, he didn't have consistency. And then when Joe Flacco played, bada bing, bada boom, Amari Cooper, everyone's like, where have you been? Top 10 wide receiver. Now look at him. Same thing with Indy last year. Anthony Richardson, right out of the gate. Michael Pittman, haven't heard of him. But all the hype going into this year about Michael Pittman was because of what happened after Anthony Richardson left with Minshew. And then what do you know? Richardson goes down this week. Michael Pittman has the game of the year for him. 6 catches, 113 yards. This week he faces the Jags defense, allowed the 5th most points to wide receivers. I would say, though, keep an eye on AR if he is playing. I might reconsider my start of the week in Michael Pittman. But if it's Flacco, fire up Pittman.
Well, again, the stats bear it out. When he has consistency at quarterback, he's a bona fide. He is a number 1 receiver. But when you have a quarterback that's inconsistent like Anthony Richardson, and I hate to keep beating a dead horse, but in Indy, that matters. Like all those guys that are skill players, they get bumped down because of no consistency at quarterback. Now, if Flacco does play, they all get a bump up. Downs gets a bump up. Pittman gets a bump up. I mean, so it's very evident that, again, as we talk about all the time, playing at the quarterback position, most important position, when you lose your quarterback, i.e., Achane, Tyreek Hill, your numbers go down. When you get your quarterback back, Jayden Reed, Dobbs, Wicks, your numbers go up. And Pittman's in that category where his numbers potentially could go up with Flacco at quarterback.
Mm-hmm. Now, did you say something about losing a quarterback and what that could do to your wide receiver core?
Ooh, I did. So I'm sticking with the Miami offense in terms of my sit for the week. My sit for the week, and this, again, it pained me last week when I talked about Mark Andrews because I drafted him, and it pains me this week because I drafted this guy as the number 1 receiver in 2 of my leagues, and unfortunately, with the situation with Tua Tagovailoa and his concussions, Tyreek Hill gets a major bump down. So what a difference not having your starting quarterback makes, Blake. Tyreek Hill goes from the number 1 overall receiver for the most part in most drafts. You can debate him or Justin Jefferson. ESPN has him wide receiver 24. So that makes him a wide receiver 2 for the consensus number 1 wide receiver. I mean, who would have thought that a month ago? Now, since Tua's injury, Tyreek's numbers are 10 catches for 87 yards, no touchdowns. Man, how the mighty have fallen, Blake.
I've seen posts left and right about, do I sit Tyreek Hill?
I sat him last week and I paid Jameson Williams. I did. I can't have no production from my top guy. It can't happen.
That's hard. That's like those who drafted CMC in the first round.
Oh, it's but again, when you have Tyreek Hill and Mark Andrews on the same team, it really is not that hard. It's not that hard. But it pains me because, again, with Tua, you can obviously see what the numbers are going to be. If you look at the first game, I think he had, I don't have the stats in front of me, but I think it was 12 targets, 7 receptions, 130 yards, and a touchdown against Jacksonville when Tua would play. That was the last game he played. And, obviously he balled out. But I can't see him getting anywhere close to those numbers with the quarterback situation he has with Huntley. I can't see it happening.
Nope.
Yeah.
So he's a safe sit.
Yeah. And just think of the guys you're sitting. This is the craziest year. You're sitting the top 3 tight end, even I mean, there was talk of obviously even sitting Kelsey. So it's just been one of those crazy fantasy years. But yeah, I'm sitting Tyreek Hill until I see something.
I'm with you on it. My set of the week at wide receiver, Jacoby Myers. Not normally a top 36 wide receiver that most people are considering, but with Devontae Adams, again, unlikely to play. I have this feeling that everyone's going to be back on the Jacoby Myers bandwagon, but I really want you to think twice about this. He's heading to Patrick Surtain Island. He has literally been the most shut down quarter in the NFL this year. Jacoby Myers is not going to be any different. He has defeated and shut down studs so far this season. Don't even touch Jacoby Myers.
Agree 100%. Like, if Devontae Adams was playing, he'd shut him down. It doesn't matter. Like Surtain is that good. He'll be consensus All-Pro, Pro Bowler, whatever you want to call it. So note that if your team is going up against Denver, that you got a receiver, don't start him. It ain't worth your time. Find somebody else. And Jacoby Myers, let's be honest, he's not on the same, not even close to Devontae Adams. So why would you play him anyway?
It's safe to say that, I'm probably going to play the Patrick Surtain Jr. card until proven otherwise.
Well, you won't be playing it for the rest of the year. And a year after that, and a year after that.
Here soon, I might have to find a second corner that's good so that I don't bore y'all with consistently sitting the person going against Surtain.
But there's a couple out there. We'll get into that at some point this year.
All right, so heading over to the tight end spot. This is the one that just still, like you said, like, please come back, TJ. Like, we need another tight end to talk about because there is no consistency and there's really not much output from this position. Who you starting this week?
I am starting Pat Freiermuth from the Steelers. Over the last couple of weeks, he saw a spike in targets. Now, when I say spike, you got to think, relatively speaking, the way the tight end position has been. So he went from 5 2 weeks ago to 7 this week and scored a touchdown. Again, considering the struggles of the tight ends this year, those aren't bad numbers. And I think he's getting comfortable with Justin Fields, and Justin Fields is getting more comfortable with him. So with that being said, I think Freiermuth could potentially be a start every week moving forward, considering the production. Again, what you're getting out of the tight end position is nothing. So why wouldn't you take a chance on Pat Freiermuth? And I'm starting him this week.
Who does Pittsburgh have this week?
Dallas.
Oh, yeah. That's a safer pick.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
And I feel like I might be picking the tight end one this week. I think Travis Kelce might be back to tight end one numbers. With the Rice injury, Kelce stepped up and looked like he was back to his old fashioned 7 for 89 on 9 targets. That's almost as many targets as he had seen all season. This week, he's got a matchup against the Saints that on paper is tough as a whole, but they've allowed the 11th most points to the tight end position this year. So there's a chance he goes back-to-back top 5 tight end this week. Might be tight end 1, depending on how the whole position plays.
Yeah, I would agree with that. We saw what the Saints did what the Eagles did against the Saints and Dallas Goedert. And, again, when that stuff gets on tape, what do you think teams are going to do? If you got a good tight end, you're going to exploit that position. So I would expect a healthy dose of Mahomes to Kelce this week against the Saints. No question about that. I think that's a great start.
Yeah, Kelce is that guy, and we know that.
Yeah, he's a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, but one guy that I've realized recently that is not that guy, he just isn't that guy, and we just have to accept it, is Kyle Pitts. Like, I am sitting him in all formats moving forward until I'm proven, consistently otherwise. This dude, 58% of his points on the season have come on 2 plays.
Oh.
He's averaging 3.8. You said 5 to 7 targets? He's averaging 3.8 targets per game. And Atlanta's offense as a whole is inconsistent. Bijan hasn't done diddly compared to where he was drafted. Ugh. I don't know who the wide receiver 1 is, Drake or Mooney. And then you got Kyle Pitts. This week he's got the Bucks. 12th fewest points allowed to the tight end position. I'm waving off the white flag. We're done. Kyle Pitts. See you. Bye.
Well, I'm dropping him. I don't even want him on my team. I am. Yep, I am so frustrated with this man. I don't. If I had him on my team, I'd drop him like a hot rock. I mean, it's the guy is so uber talented, and for some reason, he can't put it together, and I don't understand it. Now we could have blamed it on the quarterback issues that he had, but let's be honest, Kirk Cousins is a pretty damn good quarterback, and he gives them some stability. But to your point, man, Atlanta's offense. I mean, Bijan's not doing anything. Pitts is not doing anything. Drake London is hit or miss. It's just one of those offenses that it just doesn't scare anybody. It's just blah. And that's Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins, as you can say what you want to say, and he'll put up numbers, but really, is it anything to write home about? Not really. So, in terms of not starting Kyle Pitts, I've been on that train for a while. Seriously. Welcome aboard, buddy. Welcome aboard. Now, my sit for this week is probably going to be a little surprising, but again, it's all about matchups, fanatics, and we're talking about the tight end position that hasn't really given you the output that you would think. I'm sitting Dalton Kincaid. Yep, that's right. Dalton Kincaid against the Houston Texans. The Texans have allowed just 10 catches to opposing tight ends all year. Kincaid has yet to top 47 receiving yards and only has one touchdown. I believe his struggles continue this week against the Texans. So I am sitting, you heard it here, sitting Dalton Kincaid. Everybody's kind of darling tight end for this year. I am sitting him.
I was big on him, and I'm still kind of high on him, but I just don't know when it's gonna hit. He had one good week.
Right.
We still don't know who the target is. The main target in Buffalo. Shakir.
Yep. It's Shakir. It's not, I mean, Shakir and everybody else. Shakir and everybody else. So, yep, I'm sitting Dalton Kincaid this week, fanatics. Again, the Texans are great against the tight end. And, it's almost like, and I'll be honest with you, Blake, it's almost like we shouldn't even have a segment about tight ends. Really, because they just don't do anything. Right? I mean, why? I mean, we will have this segment on tight ends, but man, we're talking about guys that are scoring maybe, if we're lucky, 10 points a game, and we're happy with that. Top tight ends. These guys used to be bona fide receivers, and now they can't even get 10 points. It's really been the most disappointing position out of all this year. Has been the tight end the production out of the tight end position in fantasy.
It's such a downer position right now. Let's move on to something more fun, exciting, positive.
Let's do it.
We say we move on to survivors.
Let's do it. Survivor. Who you got this week? Safe and caution.
I'm telling you, man, there's no one that I love this week. I don't think there's anything there's a lot of confidence. I like San Francisco. I'm confident in San Francisco, but I picked San Francisco last week. So in trying to provide something other than the obvious and back-to-back, I went Seattle over the Giants. Yeah. So they got a 33% pick popularity with a 67% win popularity or probability. I'm sorry. The 33% pick popularity is the most popular pick this week, Seattle over the Giants, which is kind of interesting because it's only a 6-point spread.
Right.
So there's a little bit of risk built into this right out of the gate. I mean, especially for the quote-unquote lock of the week. With Neighbors having missed practice this week, though, I think that does help the odds of Seattle winning over the Giants.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I like this pick. I looked at the point spreads this week, and I think this was the highest point spread, this one in San Francisco. But everybody else was literally between 2 and 3 points, 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah.
So, again, this is one of those weeks that, man, it is tough to pick a winner. I mean, you look at that schedule like, I don't know. But I can see the Seahawks obviously beating the Giants. Who's your caution pick this week, Blake?
Be careful picking the Chiefs over the Saints.
Okay.
Chiefs have a 62% win probability. They're at home. They're 4-0. Saints are 2-2. But Kansas City has barely survived their first 4 games. I'm talking squeaked by in every single instance. Those red stripes have shown up and shown out for sure. And we've seen that New Orleans can strike fire at any time. They might put up 60 points. Who knows? But with the loss of Rice, facing a tough New Orleans defense, as I had mentioned previously, this game causes me to hesitate a little bit.
Okay. Well, you forgot to put one bullet point in there, and Kansas City fans will get mad at me. I mean, let's just say they've been getting a couple calls here and there recently from the referees that either haven't been called or have been kind of controversial. So, you're already playing a pretty good Chiefs team, and then sometimes the refs kind of interject themselves or don't interject themselves in specific situations. So that's the one to keep an eye on. But I agree with that. Anytime you play, I believe that game's in New Orleans. Is that correct?
It's Kansas City.
Oh, it's in Kansas City. Okay. Well, again, New Orleans has a good defense. And defense always travels. So I'd be wary of that. And then you got to worry about the offensive firepower that they have with Derek Carr and Kamara and Chris Olave. So that's gonna be an interesting game.
Yep. And I did say the red stripes.
You did. I got you.
Okay. Because you started talking about the calls you get and didn't get, and the red stripes are those making the calls.
I know. I got you.
All right. Where are you at on your safe and caution pick this week, Jay?
To your point, it was tough this week because I went back and forth on a couple picks. I like Seattle over the Giants. I liked Houston in their game, but I picked Houston last week, so I was like, well, I can't pick them again.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going with a division matchup, which kind of bucks the rules, right? Yeah, this is a tough one, but I'm going with the Patriots over the Dolphins, and I'm like, man, this is but in order to switch it up and give everybody something to talk about, I got New England beat Miami. Man, after watching Miami against Tennessee, it's hard to think they'll put enough points up to beat the Patriots with Tyreek Hill and Achane. And this has been a Miami theme for me, if you can't tell. The Pats got destroyed, mollywopped, whatever you want to call it, against San Francisco. Dolphins coming off a short week. I think the struggles continue for the Dolphins. I think the Patriots find a way to win in a probably not a very good game, probably be an ugly game, but New England tends to win ugly games. So I got New England over Miami.
Did you see that New England lost another lineman?
I did. Yeah.
Gosh, that team is just devastated with lineman injuries.
Yeah. And I still think it doesn't matter against Miami because, if you watch Miami, they lost a couple of players on both sides of the ball. So
I did see that.
Yeah. So again, this is not going to be a pretty game. This is a hard one to pick because it's going to be, again, an ugly type of game. But, I actually have faith in New England, and I think they'll beat Miami. I think their coaching will be better. They still have, decent talent. I think the quarterback position is a lot stable than Miami's clearly. And I think the Patriots will get back to what they do best, is running the ball, playing good defense, and winning a game, 9-3 or 10-3, something like that.
And Antonio Gibson's looked good the past 2 weeks. He's had 10-plus fantasy points each week.
Yeah, and he's giving them some juice, and they need that. I mean, because that offense is stale. I mean, it's not very fun to watch. They don't have any threats in the wide receiver position. You got Hunter Henry, maybe a threat at the tight end. So inject Gibson and give him a little bit of juice. So I think that'll help him out.
I see you're in Cincinnati this week on the caution pick.
I am. I'm on to Cincinnati. You see what I did there? New England on to Cincinnati. That was pretty good. Yeah. Okay. So my caution pick this week is the Ravens over the Bengals. Yes. I know the Ravens have had the Bengals number over whatever couple years. Division game on the road, coming off an impressive Sunday night win against the Bills. That's a recipe for maybe a little bit of a letdown. The Bengals kind of finally found their stride against the Panthers. Offense is playing really good. The defense is something to be desired, but be careful. I think this is going to be a shootout. I'll talk a little bit about that when we make our bets, but just be careful about this one. This one could be interesting, and the Ravens could be going into a jungle that's going to be pretty wild and crazy.
It will be a hostile environment for sure.
Yeah. Always is Ravens Bengals. No question.
But Derrick Henry scares me. Our run defense. We did get a couple of D linemen back though, but Derrick Henry scares me.
Oh, he scares everybody. I mean, look at him; he scares everybody. But I think it'll be an interesting game. I really do. I think the Bengals, they could make enough plays to win. I think it'll be a close game all the way, but I think the Bengals could potentially win.
I'd
There we
love to
go.
see it. I hope you're right.
Let's do it.
I got a question for you, Jay.
What's that, buddy?
What's the best way to get your Sunday started right?
Still tastes so good when it hits your lips.
Sure does. The Sunday 6-pack. Let's do it.
Let's do it. Sunday 6-pack. I think did you start last week or did I start?
I started.
Okay. All right, I'll start this week.
All right.
So I got 3 bets, and these are all coming off of FanDuel. So my first one is, again, every week I'm like, okay, this is definitely a lock. And last week I gave you that under with the Jets in Denver, and now that was a lock upon lock upon lock. This week, I'm going with Nico Collins over 5.5 receptions. Did you see what he did last week, Fanatics? 12 receptions on 15 targets. He's leading the league in receiving yards, and you're telling me his number is over 5.5 receptions? Come on, man. I can't believe this bet is even out there. So definitely taking Nico Collins over 5.5 this week. No question about it. Easy money.
I mean, I would have in my head, like as I commonly do, like I pick a number and when I get to the point where I look to find the player and the receptions or the yards, I mean, I would have started at 6.5.
At least.
As a wide receiver one that's clearly the number one target in a high throttle offense, 6.5 is where you start the conversation. So 5.5, I'll take that all day.
Oh, I couldn't believe it. My next one is a little bit of a change for me. I am more of an under picker in terms of points, but with this week, I'm going with the Bengals Ravens staying in Cincinnati over 48.5 points. Now, we saw what the Ravens did on offense. We saw what the Bengals did on offense. We know what the Bengals can't do on defense. And I think the Bengals offensively match up pretty good against Baltimore's defense. I think they have a little bit more firepower than Buffalo. So I am expecting this to be a shootout. Lamar against Joe. You got Chase, you got Higgins, you got Flowers, you got Henry, you got maybe a tight end from Baltimore if we're lucky, and we know how the Bengals don't cover tight ends. So maybe this is the week Mark Andrews busts out. Who knows? But I am taking the over 48.5 points, Bengals Ravens.
I like that. I think it's going to be a shootout. There's going to be a lot of points scored. I don't know about the tight ends getting involved, but I think Justice Hill might.
Oh, yeah. He's going to be an X factor, no question. And lastly, this one is a little bit of a head scratcher for me. But I was like, you know what? Why not? I'm near Chicago, and all I've heard the last 3 days is how the Bears are starting to put it together. So when you're near Chicago and hearing all that stuff about the Bears, what do? You check out the over-under on Caleb Williams' passing yards this week against Carolina. And the over is 216.5. So I am saying, yes, Caleb Williams starts to put it together. And you know what? I think he's probably a little bit upset about all the attention Mr. Daniels is getting and wants to prove everybody, like, listen, man, I'm the number one pick. Jayden Daniels was number 2. And I'm going to start to show you. So I think Caleb is going to have some type of chip on his shoulder, and he's going against the Carolina D. Let's be honest, the Bengals shredded him last week. So I'm expecting Caleb Williams to have over 216 yards passing. I think this may be even – I think he's had one 300-yard game. I think this will be his second of the year. I'm not worried about Carolina's defense. I think Caleb Williams gets well over that number this week.
Yeah, we saw what Joe Burrow did to him. That's going to be I can't say that I'm confident it's a lock, but that's a pretty good pick.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's a lock, but I feel pretty good about it. I think the first two are definitely locks. This one, I went back and forth on, but I feel pretty good about it.
So similar to a lock, a shutdown, lock, shutdown. I'll tie those two together. Last week, Garrett Wilson, under on receptions, under on receiving yards, and it's all because of Patrick Surtain Jr. So I'm sticking with him again on my unders this week. He's going to be going up against Jakobi Meyers. The under 4.5 receptions, the under 45.5 receiving yards. There is no way that either of those don't hit. Gardner Minshew and Jakobi Meyers combined against Patrick Surtain, it's not happening. Not happening. And that's all I'm going to say. Literally, all I have to say to explain this whole thing is Pat Surtain Jr.
I agree. There's no chance. Jakobi, there's just no chance.
I went straight there and looked it up, and my number in my head was like 33.
I mean, again, if Devontae Adams, he would probably be at 5.5. I don't see that happening.
Nope.
I agree 100%. Pat Surtain Jr., you got two fans here on a podcast, and we're going. Listen, we're riding Pat Surtain all the way to the bank. Let's just put it that way.
I'm gonna go ahead and reach out to Pat, see if he'll join us on an episode.
Yeah, maybe. You never know.
Big fans.
Yes.
All right. My third pick is Zach Moss, under 45.5 rushing yards. So again, facing the number 3 run defense in the NFL. Game script says plenty of passing. Jason, as you said, it's going to be a shootout. 2 of the 4 games that Moss has played in for the Bengals this year, he has not exceeded 45 yards rushing. The 2 that he did were against the Commanders and the Panthers. I mean, neither of those are good run defenses.
No.
Plus now you've got the emergence of Chase Brown. We don't know what that looks like, but I have a feeling he's going to be at a 50-50 timeshare at a minimum. So Zach Moss under 45.5. I'm good there. My bonus pick, I'm going to give you a 4th. And Justin Fields, anytime touchdown, plus 185 on DraftKings. He's facing a Dallas defense that hasn't even slowed the run down, much less stopped them in 3 or 4 games so far this season. Likely no Jaylen Warren due to injury. And as you've all seen, Najee can't find a hole at the goal line to save his life. They are going to run Justin Fields at the goal line. He's going to get an on-the-ground anytime touchdown.
I think that's a lot. I'll be honest with you, the last 2 weeks, maybe even 3, I've had Justin Fields anytime touchdown score, and I think I've hit on all 3 of them in terms of that particular bet.
Mm-hmm.
Goal line is definitely something he thrives in terms of the read option. Dallas is going to be without Micah Parsons, which I think will be huge.
I didn't realize that. Double down on my bet.
Yeah, I think he's out for a few weeks with the high ankle sprain. So definitely Justin Fields anytime touchdown score. Yeah, I feel like that's definitely a lot.
All right, Jason. Well, I got a fun fact for you.
Let's do
Moving
it.
on from our Sunday 6-pack. Did you know Jared Goff has more receiving touchdowns than all of these players combined? Debo, Brandon Ayuk, Waddle, George Pickens, Laporta, Travis Kelce, Trey McBride, and our favorite, Mark Andrews.
Wow.
After Monday Night Football's receiving touchdown from Amon-Ra St. Brown, he has a receiving touchdown faster than a lot of 3rd and 4th round, like top 3 and 4 round players.
Amazing. Again, what do you say to that? Like that's the most bizarre stat I've ever seen. And
it's perfectly fitting for the season.
Totally. This is the most bizarre fantasy season I've ever seen. But you named some dogs, some studs, and Jared Goff has more receiving touchdowns than these guys combined. I mean, if you can't make this stuff up. You can't. That's a good nugget right there. Very good nugget.
It's all in fun. All right, homie.
It is.
So, I'm finding these things. We're having these conversations on social media. Fanatics, if you're not already following us on YouTube, please do. We're live there. You can see our ugly mugs. You can see us laughing and having a good time. That's right. We're also on Facebook and Instagram. Join us there. Join in the conversation. Have some fun. Bring the questions to the table. We love it.
Exactly. Couldn't say it better. Also, make sure you share the episodes on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. We've gotten some people that have really kind of talk to us and say, "Hey, we really like your show." Well, if you like it so much, share it, people. Share the wealth. We're all about giving you as much information as we can. So if you're listening to the podcast out there, tell your friends, tell your parents, tell your wives, tell your significant others, whatever that looks like. Whoever's in the fantasy that wants to listen to two guys who think they know what they're talking about, but maybe don't know what they're talking about. Hey, why not?
Colleagues too. I've found that a lot of colleagues like to support.
Yeah.
Share with colleagues. And if you don't want to share the episode, give us a rating and a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. That goes a long way too. We appreciate that.
We do appreciate it. Well, fanatics, that's a wrap for this episode of the Sunday Funday Guys, Fantasy Football Podcast. And fanatics, remember to make this Sunday your fun day. Sunday Funday Guys out.